everybody backing down. You pray to stars that can help.
Police have authority under criminal or municipal law to confiscate condoms from sex workers or to regard possession of condoms as probable cause that the possessor engages in sex work. This practice undermines a sex worker's ability to possess and carry condoms and adds to their fear of police violence. Criminalisation impedes sex workers' ability to negotiate condom use with their clients and may force them to work in hidden or remote places where they are more vulnerable to violence. Sex workers who are regarded as criminals often face abusive or judgmental treatment in health services and cannot enjoy the benefits of social services or of regulations that protect other workers. A group of 23 sex workers in Macedonia were arrested and forcibly tested for HIV and other sexually transmitted diseases. 7 were later charged with transmitting infective diseases when they were found to be living with hepatitis C.
And I get back to you. At least days run by, but I still lose.
Police are often the perpetrators of abuses against sex workers. Where sex work is criminalised, police wield power over sex workers in the form of threats of arrest and public humiliation. They use this power to coerce, extort from, and physically abuse sex workers. In Central and Eastern Europe and Central Asia, a high proportion of sex workers have reported suffering sexual assault by police at some time, ranging from 20% of sex workers in Bulgaria to as high as 90% in Kyrgyzstan. In Cambodia, reports indicate that 42% of freelance sex workers have been beaten by police and 44% have been raped by police officers. Similarly, 72% of brothel-based sex workers have been beaten by police and 57% have been raped by police. Not only is physical health undermined by decriminalisation, but mental health issues plague sex workers in India. 93% of Indian commercial sex workers enter the trade out of economic necessity due to lack of education, multi-generational poverty, family debts, and desertion by husbands or lovers. Depression among sex workers is related to sexual and physical abuse associated with entry into sex work and the knowledge of health risks. As well as this, depression can also be attributed to stigmatization and the negative social labels of sex work as immoral and deviant. According to this view, internalizing such stigma undermines a woman's sense of empowerment and leads to feelings of submissiveness and further self-degrading behavior. Evaluations have shown that these programs usually do result in greater use of condoms. Sex worker organisations have objected to the repressive way in which many such programs are implemented, including giving police great latitude to publicise the identity of sex workers charged with condom infractions and forcing sex workers to undergo medical tests. If sex work or some elements of it are decriminalised, governments may still choose to define these acts as infractions of civil or administrative law. Decriminalisation, however, is an expression of a government or society's view that sex work should not be punished by the harshest penalties and that sex workers should not be cast as criminals. Sex workers are recognised under the Health and Safety in Employment Act, resulting in the creation of occupational health guidelines, which sex workers have used to assert their rights with employers and clients. Specifically, the Health and Safety in Employment Act provides the occupational health and safety guidelines for all places of work across the country. In relation to the sex industry, this provision not only means that all brothels, for example, must be in good repair and must have fire extinguishers, but also that sex workers' outfits have to be comfortable to wear, that there needs to be non-allergenic lubricants and oils available, and that sex workers should have decent breaks between clients. Furthermore, the Australian state of New South Wales has also decriminalised sex work. In New South Wales and New Zealand, sex workers have been able to work with the government to develop occupational safety and health guidelines for sex work, something that is difficult where criminal law is applied. Sex workers in these jurisdictions have good access to HIV prevention materials and supplies, such as condoms and lubricants, and the rate of transmission of HIV between sex workers and their clients is low. A 2010 study in 3 Australian cities concluded that sex workers in legal licensed brothels had better access to condoms, lubricants and health services than those in other circumstances. A notable case of legalisation and regulation is sex work in designated legal brothels in the US state of Nevada. Nevada state law allows counties with fewer than 400,000 residents to license and regulate brothels. Nevada's brothels are generally in isolated rural areas. Condoms are mandatory, and participating counties require that sex workers be tested for certain sexually transmitted disease at regular intervals. Decriminalisation and legalisation of prostitution is often assumed to go hand in hand with a decrease in the spread of HIV and AIDS due to the access to better health and safety resources. In India, where prostitution is considered both legally criminal as well as a moral and religious sin, it is estimated that over 50% of sex workers are currently HIV positive. If women do not have the ability to initiate safe sex or access primary health care and health-related information because of the stigma attached to their lifestyle, they will be at an increased risk of contracting HIV. In the West African country of Senegal, women over the age of 21 may register and work legally as sex workers if they submit to periodic medical examination and carry a record of their registration and their medical exams. Senegal first instituted legalised sex work in the 1960s to curb the spread of STIs. While Senegal has been praised for its response to HIV, including being able to monitor and offer services to a visible population of sex workers, an apparently large number of sex workers prefer not to register. Registered sex workers have complained that the registration system announces them as sex workers in unduly public ways. When sex workers register to work legally, their files are sent to the police, which facilitate harassment, abuse, and extortion by the police, according to sex workers. The fear of this abuse is one factor that keeps women from registering as legal workers. Others include not wanting their families and friends to know that they are sex workers, and the difficulty of removing one's name from sex work registration if one leaves the sex trade.